Hey there, I'm Cyn Sweeney. Welcome to Simply Beyond, a simply good form podcast. I'm your host, a speaker, author, coach, and mama bear to a transgender young adult. This is a space for real stories and bold conversations that go beyond the binary, where lived experience leads and every voice matters. Whether you're here to learn, reflect, or feel a little less alone, you are exactly where you need to be. Let's dive in. Okay, well, welcome to the podcast. We've got a great show lined up for you today. Today's episode speaks directly to a reality that many people never see, the quiet and often invisible struggle that transgender young people face when navigating their identities, their bodies, and a world that is not necessarily built with them in mind. Every year, thousands of trans young people experience gender dysphoria, deep distress when someone's gender identity does not match their body or how others perceive them. And it's not just discomfort, it can shape mental health, self-esteem, relationships, and access to safe sexual health care. And when you add misinformation, judgment, and a lack of support at home, well, that isolation can be overwhelming. But here's the truth. Affirming language, accurate information, and compassionate community can turn isolation into empowerment. My guest today is helping build those bridges. Joining me today is Hanley Smith. Hanley is a passionate advocate and program coordinator at Heal Nova Scotia, and one of the creators behind Check Me Out, an online resource supporting trans young people who are navigating gender-based body dysphoria, especially during intimate or sexual moments. Hanley has helped develop and implement a number of queer youth programs, health-focused programs, and their award-winning contributions reflect years of volunteer service, community care, and professional experience in this space. They're especially interested in sexual health information and the evolving landscape of prevention work. And they've collaborated with researchers to integrate trauma-informed practices into programs that support both physical and mental well-being. Outside of health and advocacy, Hanley is also a musician and disabled artist, and they love supporting other disabled artists in the community. Their work often intersects with their lived experience, creativity, and passion for reducing isolation through knowledge. Check Me Out offers real-world advice, trustworthy information, and language that validates lived experience because young people deserve to feel safe, respected, and empowered in their own bodies. Hanley, welcome to the show.
Hello.
It's so great to have you. And today I thought we could begin by anchoring us in something real. According to the 2023 U.S. National Survey by the Trevor Project, which some of our listeners might be aware of, only 38% of trans and non-binary youth report having an LGBTQ affirming home environment. Now, that's their use of the acronym. But so what that means when we look at that, only 38%, the majority of trans youth do not feel supported in the very place that should be the safest. Hanley, in your experience, how does feeling unsupported or misunderstood at home affect a young person's experience of gender dysphoria and mental health?
Huge question off the bat. How does feeling unsafe in the place that you live and come from affect everything? It affects everything. I think it's like a very simple thing to understand, like the moment that you can wrap your head around this idea of like, if where you come from cannot possibly see you as who you are going to feel dissonance in everything. And gender dysphoria is so gut-wrenching. Like it's this, I'm like transgender myself, I'm non-binary, them pronouns, I've been going through the process of attempting a medical transition since I was a teenager, and I'm 23 now. And the reality is, like, when you are around people who, according to like all evidence, all media, the expectations of the world, there's supposed to be family is designed in these situations to be unconditional support. Different. In my own experience, there's often a concept that, like, if I don't acknowledge it, if we ignore the problem, that to many folks who like have young trans people in their lives, they'll be like, well, that is a form of respect because I'm not actively doing anything to harm them. But if you don't actively feed your kid, you're still doing something wrong. You need to make them food, right? Like, inaction is not inherently better than action. And in many ways, it's doing the same sorts of harm.
Right. Like silence then. Yeah, the silence or being too afraid to talk about it can send that same message that it's not okay, that we don't approve of those values in our family. Would that be right?
Yeah. I feel like it makes it harder to then go to other parts of your life as you grow and become an adult and ask for better treatment. If you don't know, or any experience you've had in reaching out for support has not been then lifted up, you have to make an example for how your family will be expected to be treated as they get older. Communication isn't something that's easy to learn. It's hard to figure out the right way to ask for help, or to ask just to be treated fairly. And gender dysphoria is like a reality. There's very little that we can do as individuals to prevent that in another person. But what we can do is make it ourselves open to hearing ways that we could change, or open to experimentation, open to whatever sort of shape this affirming reality could take. If we become consumed by like this idea we have to be one way, or that we have to like pick something and run with it, you can't ever change, you're not actually preventing dysphoria. You're just telling someone that they still have to be something. They're still going to be struggling in their own head when they want change and have no safe space to like play. And I think that a lot of gender ends up coming out in play. Even as I get older, the folks in my life who are coming out in their 20s and 30s are then like trying to experience a bit of childhood again. They're going to seek out something like that. So if you can give that from the jump, a safe place to play in gender, then in adulthood, when that comes up again, because it's natural, it's going to happen, that's not so terrifying anymore. It's really about preventing shame.
Right. And then do you think then it has, there's a big role then around the affirming family environments in building resilience?
Absolutely. It's really leading with example. If you expect people to communicate clearly and to uphold your boundaries and to give you space to be unique and a version of yourself that might not be palatable to like a really wide public, but if when you're at home you have that space, suddenly when you have new homes, right? Like we don't stay in the same place our whole lives most of the time. You'll have expectations that people will treat you well. And we know from data and personal experience, many transgender folks do not expect to be treated well. Right? You're more likely to be a victim of domestic abuse if you're transgender.
Right, right. Let's talk about like language then, and help people get talking. So, how important first is the language we use when talking about gender dysphoria with young people?
Language, I think, is one of the most wonderful things. I love it. I love how words have so many different meanings, and then they mean something different to different people. I can think of like the number of times that me and my partner have gone off about being like how different food words mean something different to different people. So I was like, something that is like crispy and something that's crunchy are two different things. And she's like, no, they're the exact same. I'm like, no, 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 they mean a different thing. But like in her brain, it does. And I just have to talk to her about that to understand why she's saying that like the broccoli was crispy. And I'm like, it wasn't burnt, it was fresh. So that kind of thing. That carries over into our language about our bodies and gender and our all of these things mean very different things to different people. Like, I'm a sexual health educator, so I use a definition of sex that is like very specific. And sex is one of those words, I think, especially around gender dysphoria and around queerness in general, that is like has the most varied definitions. So like for me, I end up using the term sex to mean like it's entirely convoluted. It's like the touching of genitals without a cloth barrier, with intentionally and sexually, like, because we don't want to include a wide variety of things in sex that are like not safe and not fair, but we want to include every single human body, and we are mostly talking about it from the perspective of like risk of transmission of STDs and STBBIs, like sexually transmitted diseases, sexually transmitted and bloodborne infections. These, but like, if I were to say that to a regular person on the street, I would
You're like,
sound
what?
deranged.
Wait, what? No, I was just asking, like, sex is assigned at birth. Like, what is your sex? Yeah, no, but
Or
it's
if
good.
someone was just like telling me about their hookup, and I was like, did you do it without a cloth barrier, or did you engage? Like, whoa, that would be insane. That's not casual. So it's like very, very different. And then when you're trans, you can use that language and shift it to be affirming for you. So there's a lot of people who would never define like toys as being part of sex or grinding as being part of sex. But if that's what's accessible to you, if that's what is going to feel affirming to your gender, if that's what you want it to be, then that's what it is. If it feels like it is sex to you, then it is. In the same way that if it feels like you are the gender you are, then you are, right? Like,
Love that. You define your own experience, right?
yeah.
You define you. You define you. Okay. So on the Check Me Out website, which I love, and the graphics are beautiful. It's so user friendly. There is a great section on language, and now we're talking about this website is targeted more towards teens.
It's 18 plus as far as like the checklist goes. We can't really give recommendations to anyone under that as far as their sexual health and testing and stuff like that. And so our mandate at Heal NS is 18 plus. So it's definitely designed for that age range, but the information is information that's on the internet.
Well, it's great for parents to have too, parents and caregivers, because your young trans, gender curious, gender non-binary children are going to be getting curious, and they're going to have questions for you. And wouldn't you want to be able to answer them and in an informed way? So we're saying for 18 plus, for parents and caregivers, for educators, there's a great section on language. And I'm just wondering, Hanley, could you maybe share if there's any off the top of your mind terms or phrases that would help validate trans experiences, and maybe talk about why they matter?
Mm-hmm. Often I think the thing that comes up the most when I'm talking, and this is like very under the realm of like sexual content, I feel like my answers for like social stuff is just like ask the person. It's very similar, really. Ask the person how they want to be referred to, and then do that. Is pretty simple. And then if somebody says I want to experiment, just use a whole bunch of different words. And when they tell you they don't like something, stop doing it. I think that it's a deceptively simple concept, because that also just sort of means that you have to be consciously aware that you're not like always reaching for the pretty compliment, that you are mixing in other things. It's often very hard for people to act intentionally, casually. But that ends up being a large part of discovery, is how does something that's done casually feel to my gender? Does that align with me? And in like the sexual contents, we talked a lot about, like as a staff with other trans folks in the sessions on trans-specific sexual health that I've run through my work, we talked a lot about like using different terms for your body, because I think that's what comes up the most around gender dysphoria is the body. And that it was a lot of like people having very varied experiences about what they were comfortable with, who just like tried a bunch of different things. So giving complete permission to say whatever you want, there's not a right way to do that. So if you know you have like, I think that the one that I can most easily for is the chest dysphoria, right? So there are
Mhm.
some people who, when talking about their body, are going to want to use the word chest. It's like very neutral. There's some people who might want to use, let's say that you're transitioning to be more masculine, you identify as a man, and you are in the process of that. You might, and you like haven't gotten top surgery yet. I have heard from people every single thing you could think of, because it's not, for some people, referring to their chest in that situation as like a pec can feel like somebody is like lying. Like when you know that clothes don't fit you and you don't look good, and someone goes, no, it's great, you look beautiful. Like I'm a bigger
Yeah.
person, and whenever I say like I am fat, and then someone goes like, no, don't say that you're fat, you're so skinny and pretty. I'm like, well, I'm just not skinny. I'm quite large. I know that. And I am also beautiful, and those things are like not connected to each other. And that sometimes there's that feeling of like talking about your body, and you're like, and my large boobs, and then someone is like, no, you're handsome man pecs. Like, well, no. They are what they are. And that's okay. And I don't need to be upset about that all the time. Like I can still be happy and engage with my body and like be seeking change while accepting what I currently have. There was a feeling of like shame or frustration around that people would often sort of be like, well, you're a man, so you're supposed to say peck. It's like, well, most men don't say, people don't talk about their pecs. Like that's just not a thing. So it's
Yeah, I
just,
don't hear that very often.
yeah,
No. Yeah. Chest.
it's
Yeah,
it's this
maybe.
thing where like language really isn't something that you have to subscribe to a specific
Mhm.
experience. It's whatever is going to feel right. And so I have heard a really wide range.
Well, and it sounds like, this is why it's also really great for people to be able to come in and look at the language and get comfortable with it, because it stops you then from having to, it sounded like in those situations, Hanley, you were having to manage their own discomfort. They're feeling uncomfortable. They're trying to make you feel better, but you weren't feeling bad in the first place. You were feeling fine. And so then
Yeah.
it becomes awkward. Is that
Yeah. It's I think that many trans folks, especially people who are like engaging in any hookup, will hear this and be like, yup, people are weird about it. People are going to be so weird about it. A thing in language that I think it's good to remind people to look out for is language that is frequently used around fetishization. Fetishization is not like inherently evil or bad, but there are going to be people who will fetishize a trans body, and it's good to keep an eye out on that, because it is like something that could lead to danger in some situations.
Yeah, that could be a big conversation in itself, because I know as a parent, and it's not, they're not a young person anymore, they're a young adult. And so, how do you can't, my space to protect them isn't necessarily there anymore. And like what, figuring out what to say when they're younger. Are there resources on the website like for around that, or? Yeah.
There's a little piece around the language of like, keep an eye out for some of these words. These are the terms that are commonly used in like porn situations. If you want to use these words, if they make you feel hot and sexy, use them. If someone is using these for you from the jump, keep an eye out, right? Like the goal is never to say like, here's a thing that if someone says it is wrong,
Hmm.
that would be foolish.
It's
People
just
like what they like. Yeah.
a red flag more so.
Yeah, it's something to note, right? Like when I have I've had like cis men approach me and be like, I want to feed you. Red flag. I don't want to get near that. That's suspicious behavior when you're a fat person, right? I think there's a lot of people that can relate to this idea of like, if someone is coming up to me and saying this specific thing, doesn't mean that they're evil, but I am going to be suspicious of you.
That's great advice, actually. And I think, too, because of a lot of experience that I hear about with young people, and then that feeling of wanting to belong and wanting to fit in, especially in, say, junior high, that area, that age range that is just so challenging in and of itself. But that wanting to belong can set you up to put to be in a very vulnerable situation, where you might say yes to something that's making you uncomfortable because you just feel like, oh, okay, I guess this is normal being asked this. And, I think having that language earlier is only going to help keep people safer.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that people should be allowed to be into what they're into, and we shouldn't put pressure on folks. But you should be
Mm.
aware of the kind of conversations that are going on in the world about the body that you have, so that you can better protect yourself.
Great advice. Great advice. When it comes to intimacy, then, what would be some common challenges that trans youth would face when they're seeking support?
When they're seeking support, so like when they're seeking out resources around sexual health, or when they're just like amongst each other struggling with interpersonal issues around intimacy.
Yeah, maybe it's about kind of whether or not to be able to become intimate with someone or to build that comfort level, and they're
Hmm.
not sure how to get the conversation started or.
Yeah,
Mm.
I feel like it's one of those things where it is a constant conversation I've had as someone who engages with like lots of youth and lots of young adults, and then I will engage with their parents, and then there's this constant thing of like, I have to lie, I have to keep a secret, da 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 da. Your children, they are drinking, they are doing drugs, they are having sex, and that's normal. And the pressure to like be able to like assume that you will know that something is going on is not generally helpful. For those trans youth, what is helpful is like positive examples and open and honest conversations, and like when something comes up, being like, I don't know, if there's a sex scene on television, not acting desperately ashamed or confused why sex exists. Being truthful about that, because when you are trans and you're like having a regular experience of like adolescence, just yeah, I'm like trying to think of the right way to phrase these things, because like I'm constantly dealing around the concept of like your youth in your lives are doing things that you associate with being adult, and that's fine. They're going to make mistakes and learn. They are just like you. Um,
Right, right. Um,
yeah, I'm like
yeah, it's
circling around this question in my head.
yeah. Well, you know what? It'll probably come back to you as we continue on as well. But because it's that creating that safe space where we we can talk openly. I know, like in my house, just growing up alone, like there was a lot of discomfort around having these conversations, and it passes on. Like it passed on to me, and being too afraid to being able to ask and talk about sexuality. But then I found, even in parenting young kids, I had to really work at it. And I'd be sitting there going, "Why am I so uncomfortable with this now?" But it's like, oh, it's this pattern that I was kind of taught to follow, and you realize, I think, once you start to get familiar with language and actually have the conversation and laugh through the discomfort a bit with each other, and it gets easier. It does become like, and then it's so freeing, isn't it? It just becomes like this open dialogue that to be able to have that great relationship with your teen, your youth, your friend, your partner, all of that just makes all of your experiences so much better.
Yeah. And then like in that trans experience, these majority of trans people are not dealing with entirely unique problems that people can relate to. They're dealing with the same problems as other youth, but exacerbated. It's larger. So body confidence issues that end up leading to rash behaviors is exaggerated. Body confidence issues that might lead to like complete disassociation from the body and having no interest in like engaging in those
Mm.
things. That might also be exasperated, right? You can't just every experience is fine. And what someone is dealing with is what they're dealing with. And
Mm.
if someone is going to be hypersexual, they're going to be hypersexual. That's their life. And it's all about connecting them to situations where they can have conversations and feel open to like engaging in the safest practice that they are able to in those moments. So you are never going to be able to enforce complete safety, but you can give options of what is the more safe option, what the risks might be in certain actions, and then let people make their own decisions.
Right. Informed consent, right? It's about having the information. So if you're consenting to something, you know exactly what the risks are, what the pros, what the cons, all of that.
Yeah. There's a reason that on our list of oh, sorry. There's a reason that on our list of barrier and contraception methods, we still talked about the pull-out method because it's a real thing that people are doing, and we should talk about what it is, why it exists, and its levels of risk.
Right.
And we can't just ignore the reality that people are going to do risky things. It's not inherently immoral, and placing morality on behaviors like that is going to hurt not just the person you're talking to, but yourself and the people that you go on to speak to and they go on to speak to. We carry around our morality throughout life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to talk about community then and reliable resources. We're seeing a rise in online misinformation, especially around gender. Conservative disinformation campaigns deepen fear, they create confusion and erode trust in healthcare. And that's why community shared knowledge is so important, but it can't replace evidence based guidance. So, why is community shared advice crucial for trans youth from your experience, Hanley?
Queer folks have been, and other communities as well, I can speak to my own really, have been engaging in sharing information around a variety of things, but especially sexual health, orally and in community for as long as we have existed. When you don't have access to traditional media, when you don't have access to funds, when you aren't able to be engaged in the broader academic world, you're going to share your information in ways that are safer, especially when you're persecuted. So it's important to keep in mind that the beauty of community organizing and community information sharing isn't new and cannot be stopped. And in peaks of criminalization, it is not stopped. I have to recommend folks look into the Zine Library. That's in the north end of Halifax. Beautiful, powerful resources and silly, fun art and expressionism. It is shared and will be shared in the most difficult of times, either from person to person or in these small ways. So a zine, for folks who might not know, is just uh, a short magazine is essentially the term of what it's trying to express. Often made with printer paper, collage, photocopy, printing it out and folding it into a little book or stapling a bunch of pages together and just getting them out there. That's how information around HIV prevention had originally spread. It was people figuring out oh, this might be sexually transmitted because it's spreading around a specific community that I'm a part of. Let's make a zine on sexual health and HIV, and was so widely shared, it made meaningful impacts and started the work. Community resources exist for a reason. The way non-for-profits and queer organizations formed is on the backs of people who were doing it without official recognition and without pay. And acknowledging the history of that, I think, is really deeply important when considering what community work looks like now and what suppression looks like now. That we have been being suppressed. And this new wave in this information era, this internet era, it can't take down something that has been so persecuted in the past. And as persecution again, we will find ways to share information. Obviously, not everyone has access to this is part of why queer folks move into big cities. This is part of why you have neighborhoods, right? It is hard to get information out there to folks who aren't in your immediate physical community. The internet is beautiful for that, and then the internet engages in in suppression. So I think we're very likely to see a rise in queer folks moving into big cities and finding the neighborhoods. I expect to see that getting larger again in coming years.
I love that neighborhood. I love that.
You've never heard neighborhood?
I don't know why I haven't. I've heard the gay village, the gay no, but neighborhood. Yeah, it's so perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, I live in such a
The
small world.
Montreal neighborhood is the peak of these things.
So
Whenever
this
I'm in
brings
the
me
Montreal
to
neighborhood, I always feel anyway.
the
It's a
Montreal.
funny place.
Did you live there then in Montreal, or no?
No,
Oh, no.
a dear friend of mine lives there, and we're going to Montreal for the Community-Based Research Summit in just a few weeks, and I'm very excited to go hear all the stories from a couple of my friends who moved to the neighborhood.
Oh, fun, exciting. So check me out then. Let's talk about how it helps to counter misinformation, but also how it can meet sexual health needs for those who are in smaller or underserved communities, like in rural, outside those urban centers.
Yeah, so my goal in the gender dysphoria section was largely to address this piece that, like, the majority of the information I have around trans-specific sexual health, I learned from community and experience and conversation. And if that's how we're spreading sexual health information, it's beautiful and important, and it also misses people. So the goal was to create that page specifically to document some of those accounts, to bring some of that like community perspective. You'll find that like that section is written a little bit more casually than other sections, in part because of that. So it's a beautiful way to get that information into the hands of folks who don't have access to an in-person community to share that information around. And then like everything on that website is so detailed by a coworker who has since like left the organization, Olivia Kerr, wrote all of the like scientific-y pieces. And oh my goodness, they are extensive and they all link back to each other. The goal was, so the website is sort of built around this key piece of a little like quiz type deal, very similar to like a BuzzFeed quiz. You go in, you put in some information about like how old you are, what kind of sex you're having, what body parts you have sex with. We're very happy that it's like fully gender inclusive, in the sense that we do not assign identity to the body that you have. So if you tell me that you are like having, my interest for healthcare is the behavior and the body, I do not need to know your identity. And if I mix up identity into that, I'm just not going to like, why muddy the waters with such things? That's how we get exclusionary practice. And so all of the options are entirely based on that, and it is entirely intersex inclusive and inclusive of people who have gotten gender affirming surgeries surrounding their genitals. And it literally any possible human body can fill out this form. I'm very proud of it. It has like over 380 possible responses. Some of them are literally scientifically impossible, I think, to have in all likelihood, but they exist anyway, just in case we're wrong. So it's a very, very inclusive resource.
I think we
And
should
then
create an
all of
avatar.
it's
Like you need to tell me, like, so what will it spit out? Like if you pump in, can you give me some examples of if you put in
yeah,
a couple of things, what it's gonna send out to you?
for sure. So if you were to put in information saying, let's say that you are someone who's like trans feminine and you've had a bottom surgery. So you would go in and put in information about your age. So you're in your like 30s, put in information saying you have had sex with a vagina that you had through a surgery, and that you had sex with your, let's say like anus and mouth, and you put all that information in and you say how recently you have been tested, say if you've ever been tested for HIV before and what the results were. If you're HIV positive, some of the results could change. And then it would spit out a result saying what sexual health tests you get recommended. So in that situation, it would be a mouth swab, an anal swab, a vaginal swab, and a urine test. After some conversations with doctors, there's actually not any official resource for doctors to designate what sexual health tests are appropriate for people who have gotten vaginoplasties or phalloplasties. this is very frustrating to me. And every time I ask the question, most of the time doctors go, I don't know. And so after sitting down and talking about it for a while, the answer we got was do everything.
So just to clarify, didn't mean to jump in, vaginal plasties, and just give a definition for listeners who don't know what
For sure. So a vaginoplasty would be a vagina that is created through surgery.
Yep.
A vulvoplasty would be just the side part. So you can get a gender affirming surgery where no vaginal canal is created, and that's called a vulvoplasty. And then vaginoplasty, a vaginal canal is created, and then a phalloplasty would be the creation of a phallus. All of these things can exist with, like, it is possible to have parts of original genitalia intact, so it is entirely possible that someone could have, like, both a vagina they were born with and a phalloplasty of some kind. It's very dependent on, like, your anatomy and the doctor that you go to. There's such a wide range of options, and it's definitely something that, like, is far more customizable than people think it is. So that's part of why we wanted to make sure that anybody could use the tool, is because we often think of it as being like you switch entirely from one thing to another, when, like, a surgery that is, like, semi-common is to change the placement of the urethra to go through an enlarged clitoris, and then you keep the vagina fully intact. And, like, in that situation, you now have a hole in a place that it wasn't before. How are we going to do those testings? So.
Right. So yeah, it impacts the way you protect yourself and how you find out or have awareness around your health.
Yeah.
So it's important.
So when we asked doctors, like, in these situations where we're looking at these surgeries, what is the best path for sexual health testing? The answer that we widely got, even from folks involved in doing these surgeries, was like, I don't really know. Whatever they want, I guess. So there's pros and cons to that. Like, I would love if there was a real answer. But as with, like, many stuff around trans health, there's lots of research into all the reasons it shouldn't exist, and not a lot of research into what happens when you have it. So there's not a lot of thoughts about, like, the long-term health of trans folks. There's just a lot of thoughts about how to make them stop happening, which, of course, I have feelings about as a trans person. All this to say, when you go to get testing done, we have answers now, and that is incorporated into the testing unit, and we'll spit out results that we talked to doctors about and got a best practice on.
So the interactive components, the language, and all of that's on the website. How would that have impacted your journey as a young person if that had been available? What kind of response have you had from people that have used it?
We've gotten really positive results. This isn't the first time something similar to this has been created. The initial run of this program happened in 2013, but was specifically for cisgendered men and, like, gay men, and was, like, widely loved and used. And it's still trying to address a lot of the same problems, right? Like, doctors just don't know what people actually need. Often they make assumptions about the person in front of them, what kind of sex they're having, how often they should be being tested, what kind of body parts they have. That's being assumed in a lot of situations. And the goal is to make something that you could take to a healthcare practitioner and say, like, this is recommended. I need to be tested every 4 to 6 months. I need these tests, and I need a pap smear. And, like, all of that is customized and included in that information.
That's amazing.
Because we need to be able to start conversations with our healthcare practitioners. And that has been, like, the most, I think, widely loved part about it is what that means. And having this information in a place that has, like, a quick exit and constant link back to support of, like, what treatment will look like. Like, there's never a moment in this website where something that is scary is not immediately followed up with by, like, and here's why it's going to be fine, and here's what we do about it. The goal is to stop that inflammatory process that the internet often creates around medical stuff.
I love that, and make you feel less alone. And, seeing and reading about this, and it's so inclusive of diversity of everybody. I think it just, can really set people's minds at ease that, like, you're not alone in the world. Like, your problem is not a problem that you have to think about on your own. And when you're seeing that other people are also navigating it, you realize it's not a problem. It's just something to be navigated through. And yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. if I had had this resource when I was younger, and even now that I do have it, one thing that has come throughout my life is that, like, I came out young, and I came out first, and I came out loud. I am a very loud gay person. That's how you end up being a gay for pay, is that you're just like really loud about it. And I had been like doing all of these things to like get a GSA started in my junior high and get like resources into my school and like really trying to get something going. And then I started getting people coming to me with entirely different experiences than my own, asking for support and information around sexual health. And I had no idea what I was doing because, of course, I didn't. I was like a church kid who's turned all my energy from the church to a GSA. And I met it with the same level of like ferocity. Like I was crazy. And then I was like, oh, okay, so now people are going to be asking me about sex that I'm nowhere near understanding or having, stuff that doesn't match my anatomy, and they want to know about it because they need help. How am I going to help them? And I ended up doing all of this research and trying to find stuff and like seeking out information. And it was so hard to find anything that was Nova Scotia specific. A, most stuff is either American or based in Toronto. And B, like actually inclusive and supportive and not full of shame. It's very easy to get wrapped up in an abstinence-based sort of mindset when you start looking into sexual health on the internet, because it's a lot of like, if you have sex, you'll die. You won't. You're gonna be fine. Like, just get tested regularly. I really promise. And it's like, was so scary, and trying to help all these people through something that I never got education on myself. If I had had this, it would have been lovely to be able to meet those folks with like, I don't have to be a wealth of information just because I am out and loud and gay, but I can sit with you as we go through this website and we could like answer those questions together, rather than me try to find all this information on my own and all of these different resources that don't actually think of me in their creation.
I love that. And is this resource, is it being updated regularly, or is it,
Yeah.
like, it's
So
still a work in
assuming
progress?
funding continues, that's the tough part. So funding for this is through the federal. Oh no, it's through the Public Health Agency of Canada.
Okay.
And that funding is renewed every 5 years. And we are on the very later end of the third year. So we are like able to update it frequently. We read it through every 6 to 8 months just to like make sure that there's nothing we would like to change. And we would like to add more content, hopefully in the next fiscal. We're talking about doing that. Financial stuff is tough in non-for-profit life, as we know.
Oh,
Um, things have gotten like complicated, and some of our funding has had to shift. And anyway, all this to say, yes, we monitor it, we can update it, we have complete control over it, and ideally more of it will exist in the future. We really want to expand, add some pieces on mental health and consent.
right. Okay. Well, I love that. And we know that Canadian studies show that trans youth with supportive adults and access to information, they're 4 times more likely to report good and excellent mental health. So supportive schools also will double those odds. So, I think educators and parents like having a look at this information and being able to pass it down and allow people to access it. It matters. Support matters. Adults matter. Access matters.
I'm so
But
sorry. My cat's gonna keep doing that screaming until I let him in.
oh, was that your let your cat in?
That's
We're
my
we're
cat.
we're feline friendly here.
Will you stop freaking out? You gonna come inside? Take it, dude. He's been obsessed with sitting directly in front of my fan and just sort of yelling at it.
I
But
think cats are natural podcasters. I think they just want to get in front, get the attention.
Here you go, George.
Ah, beautiful. Hi, George. Um, so we're kind of, is there, what else? Is there anything else that you'd like to share? We're going to share obviously the links and everything in the show notes, but, or any other like positive changes that you've seen when youth access resources like Check Me Out?
Yeah, I think that it's always These resources exist for people. And when we use them, they get to keep existing. We live in like a largely attention-based economy now, and that includes the way that our non-for-profit funding looks. So if you are like, these things are so beautiful and I want more of them, I want the youth project to have more resources. I got my youth project hoodie on. I'm on their youth board. Engage with their content, engage with their programs, and super importantly, engage with their surveys. People will always underestimate just the extent to which your evaluation surveys make up your funding. So if you don't have money to give, don't worry about it. Go out and seek out evaluation surveys, engage with a website, engage with a program, and then give them a quote to take to their funders saying that it's beautiful and important and more of it needs to exist. It's always surprising the extent to which having a good quote makes a difference for us.
It's so true. Yeah. So it's not just about, clicking to donate. If you can't do that, you can still engage. So we'll put some links there. And if we can think of, we know some other great resources that are outside of Nova Scotia too, we can click some of those links. But I feel like something like this resource is great to share outwardly because it might not exist in other provinces across the country.
And if you're in Nova Scotia, Sugar Health is a great option if you're trying to find a sexual or gender-based resources. Sugar Health is a directory and a warm line, so they have a website you can go in. You can put in some stuff being like, I need sexual health testing, I need it to be physically accessible, I need it for this age range, and they'll like pop up a bunch of different resources near you and places to call. And they have a phone number you can call during their hours to ask questions and be connected with the best resource for you.
I love that. Well, I want to thank you so much for talking to me today about this and giving me, and I did not, I hadn't been on the website before, and now I am thrilled to know about it and can share it with parents and caregivers and my network and other trans young people as well, and help to get the word out about it and how people can get involved. So gender dysphoria is not about confusion. It's about conflict. And when the world offers misunderstanding, misinformation, or hostility, that conflict can take root. But when we offer affirming language, trusted resources, and community, we create space for young people, not just to survive, but to thrive. If you're listening and you're a parent, an educator, a coach, or caring adult, know this: your words matter, your support matters, and your willingness to learn matters more than ever. To any trans young people that might be listening, you are not alone. Your body is not a barrier to joy or intimacy, and there are people like Hanley building resources just for you. Thank you, Hanley, for your leadership and your heart. You can explore the Check Me Out website and links in the show notes, along with resources for finding affirming care in your area. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, share this episode, and keep the conversation going, because we rise together when we lead with curiosity and compassion. And until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep going simply beyond. Thanks, Hanley.
Bye-bye.
Don't go anywhere.
This cat, don't chew on the cord. Dummy.
Okay, it's going to play an outro now. You can keep your cat. You can keep playing. Thanks for listening to Simply Beyond. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or leave a review. Your support helps amplify voices that matter. You can follow us at Simply Good Form on social or visit simplygoodform.com to learn more. Until next time, keep showing up, speaking up, and leading with love.